This is Michael Van Riet, and I'm creating this short video to explain how I was able to make my time-lapse movie, A Year of Sunsets.
There are basically two major components to this project. First, I needed to be able to take the pictures on a daily basis at the right time with the right time delay between the images with the camera pointing in the right direction. And I needed it to be done automatically, so if I went on vacation or out to dinner or just forgot, I could still have the pictures. This is the rig that I built. The main structure is an articulating TV mount, the kind that allows you to pull the TV away from the wall and rotate the direction it's facing. Added to that are a motor and gears from an old robotic radio-controlled car that I had. On top of that is a camera mount with a DSLR on top. The lens is a 70 to 200 millimeter zoom that I kept fixed at the maximum magnification with manual focus at infinity. The brains of the operation are in this box, which contains some relays, a high accuracy real-time clock, and an Arduino compatible microprocessor. I programmed the microprocessor with 4 years of sunset data I found on the internet, including time and azimuth. Azimuth is the direction angle the camera should be pointing. The box also has the ability to take pictures via this cable plugged into the camera, as well as drive the motor and gears for a specified length of time. Every day, about 13 minutes before the sun is supposed to set, the box signals the camera to take a picture every 15 seconds for 25 minutes, giving 100 images per day. The microprocessor knows the difference between the angle it is pointed today and the angle it should be pointed tomorrow. After taking the last image, it commands the motor to run for the length of time necessary to move the arm by that angle. The spinning of the motor is slowed down considerably by the gears, which provides more torque and accuracy. The gears spin this bolt, which, through this nut, pushes or pulls the camera arm, depending on which way the sunset is changing at that time of year. This is the motor running. It spins pretty fast, but as you can see, the bolt is hardly moving at all. During spring and fall equinoxes, it runs for minutes at a time to cover the larger angle changes, where it hardly runs at all around summer and winter solstices. The second major component of this project was the custom image processing software. To start with, I needed a fixed reference frame in which I could place all the 37,000 images with respect to each other and with respect to the azimuth angles where the sun would be setting. So I created this large panorama by stitching together the 15 images necessary to cover the 60 degrees of horizon that the sun data told me I needed to cover. I could nail down the azimuth angles to this panorama using sunset images I had taken in the past, which told me that the sun set at these points on the horizon on these dates, which corresponded to these azimuth angles. Next, I had to place the set of images for each day of the year within the panorama's coordinate system. I did that by identifying a number of landmarks in the panorama, spaced out along the horizon, that should be easily locatable in the images from any given day. I wrote this program to display an image for each day, one at a time, and associate a point in the image with one of the pre-selected landmark sites. Due to the radically different lighting conditions, this was not always as easy as it sounds. For example, this image contains this little windmill feature, but the lighting does a pretty good job at hiding it. The feature is actually right here where you see the mouse crosshair. By clicking it, the program will now associate that location in the day image set with the landmark coordinate in the panorama. Unfortunately, I discovered pretty quickly that this provided only a very rough alignment, due, I believe, to the warping and rotating that the panorama software had performed when stitching together the individual images. In order to get the smooth movement across the horizon that you see in the video, I needed a much finer alignment between sets of images. I tried using some open source template matching algorithms to align the features between different images because I wanted to let the computer do all the hard work, but discovered that the radically different lighting conditions from one day to the next, or even from the beginning to the end of one day's set of images, was too great and the algorithms were not reliable. So I developed this feature to perform the alignment manually. It turns out human beings are pretty good at this task. Here you see a small portion of the last image from one day blinking in the foreground, and the first image from the next day in the background. Using the keyboard arrow keys, I can shift the front image pixel by pixel until there is no longer a shift between the two. Clicking OK records the number of pixels that I had to shift the image. Now this step is a bit tedious, but I wanted to mention it because I had to use the same method to correct misalignments within a given day's image. If during the image gathering the camera was bumped or the sliding glass door or curtain was opened or closed, there would be a shift in the images that needed to be corrected manually. There were a few days that a strong wind shook the glass in front of the camera, and the entire day of images needed to be manually adjusted to line up. So yeah, I did a lot of this. The camera took pictures at a pretty high resolution, over 4,700 pixels in width and 3,100 in height. The frames in the video were significantly smaller than that. So by carefully cropping the part of the image I wanted from one image to the next, I was able to achieve that smooth movement that make it seem that the camera is panning steadily across the horizon, even though the camera is sitting still each day while the images were grabbed. The way that is accomplished is, since there are so many extra pixels, you crop out part of one image, then for the next image in the sequence, you crop out a slightly shifted section of that image. For the next image, you move over a little more, and so on. Now there's no way I could have done all that image cropping manually, so I wrote the software to determine, based on the sunset data and the panorama coordinate system, where each image should be cropped, shifting it slightly from one frame to the next, and doing so at a rate that would land the next sunset in just the right spot. That rate changes from one day to the next, and even changes direction each summer and winter. So I also wrote the program to fade out the images from one day as it faded in the next, to reduce the jarring effect of an otherwise instant light change as you move from the last frame of one day to the first frame of the next. Finally, you throw all those individual frames into a video editing program. I used DaVinci Resolve. Add music, titles, credits, and you're done. It's just that simple.